Hey team, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to dive deeper into the select statement. In lesson 1, I gave you an intro to the select statement, but in this lesson, I will introduce you to the where clause, which places limits on the amount of data you get back, the order by clause, which sorts data, and lastly, the group by and having clause, which is often used when we aggregate data. We're going to start where we left off last time. Right-click, New Query. Notice here we said select star from human resources, and we know that returns us 16 lines of code. The only new thing that I would like to add here is sometimes we want to use an alias on the table name, so we can say as D, and then I can come up here and say D dot. And then I can highlight that and execute it and notice that it gives me the same. But D dot gives me the ability to go cherry pick the columns I want. D dot department ID, D dot group name, D dot name, and you see that star represents all the columns. Or I can come and cherry pick the individual columns I want to see and their order. But right now we'll just stick with star. Now the next part is this D doesn't have to be D. I can be anything I want to. I can come out here and say department, and then it's just a little bit more readable. Now, right now, that D looked like, yeah, I could understand that, but in 6 months, things start to look new again. So it'll be difficult, more difficult for you to read. When you see department and your SQL statement's 100 lines long, you want to make your SQL statement as readable as possible. Now, we're going to look at our first statement that does the where clause. I want to select D.star, you know I'm using an alias, and notice as is optional, where department ID is less than or equal to 5. So if I look at my department ID, I'm going to get these first 5 rows. If I say less than 10, I get the first 10 rows. And if I switch that over to be greater than, if I say greater than 10, I'm going to get 11 onwards. And if I say greater than equal to 10, it will include the 10. Now, the one other thing that we can add to this statement is doing some order by. And I can say order by, and then what column do I want? Well, let's order by D.name. Now, default, this will go like A to Z. It's called ascending. You can either leave that blank over here or give ASC. Notice that this is alphabetically from D to S. Now, if I want to switch that to go from S to D, I switch out ascending to descending. Is that sweet? Excellent. The next SQL statement we're going to look at is another using the where clause, but here I'm going to be using the in. And what this is saying is, hey, I want them all where the department is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Let's look at the original data. I only want this row, this row, this row, this row, this row, this row, and such. Now, this is just to show you can do this. There's no way I would do this like this. There's an easier way to do that, but this is teaching you the in. So if this department's value is one of these values, I'm going to get that back. And let's execute that. And notice here I've applied the order by, and it's already in ascending. But if I want that to go in descending, I want it to go from 16 to 2, I would say descending. Excellent. Now, it is possible that I would like the odd number records. And you're probably thinking I could go 1, 3, 5, 7 to 15, right? Or I could say not in these values. Let's do that. From 15 to 1. If I wanted that to go ascending from 1 to 15, there you have it. Now, this is the way we would do it. Imagine this table had 1 million rows. This right here is the modulus operator. Modulus just means remainder. So this is going to divide the department ID by 2, like 1 divided by 2. Well, that's going to be 1. 2 divided by 2 is 0, remainder. 3 divided by 2 is a 1 remainder. So this right here is called the modulus operator. This is the remainder. And here, we're going to get all the even records. And if I want all the odd records, I would say where the remainder is 1. This is something basic inside of SQL Server. And now you have that skills to get odd and even. A lot of people use that in a lot of things. Now, sometimes when we're using the modulus, we can also perform other actions. We can say, I want, is this odd or even? Yes, that's odd. So I want the odd records greater than 5 and less than equal to 15. So notice that we're just like loading up, the limiting factors. So notice these are the odd records from 5 to 15. That's pretty sweet, yeah? Now, of course, we can throw on some sorting on top of this, which is nice. And it just kind of like cleans up our program. Like, let's search by, how about group name? And there you go. Look at that. From A to Z. If I wanted that to go upside down, just put D-E-S-C, descending. Excellent. Now, this next SQL statement. Look here, I'm saying select, let's go get all the data, where the name, see this column name, equals sales. So I'm saying, hey, go find this row. Let's see that work. Excellent. Now, how about we just do another quick one? How would we go and find this one that says finance? So where D.name is finance. How could we find sales and finance? Well, we wouldn't say equals, we would say in, open parentheses, and now you're starting to see the power of SQL. So you have learned the in command, you have learned how to make aliases, you've learned how to do sorting, and we're just going to continue. The next statement we're going to be looking at is using the like. So now I'm saying, hey, let's look at all that data. Where name is like, it has an ES in there somewhere. So, oh, look at this, tool design, there's an ES there. There's an ES in research. There's an ES in human resources. So go find me all those names that are like, they have ES in here. Now the percent character says, hey, I don't care what it starts with. And this one at the end says, I don't care what it ends with. Now, let's do this statement. And notice all of these have an ES in there somewhere. If I come out and I say, I only want it to end with GN, notice now I've taken off the last percent and it's saying, hey, I don't care what it begins with, it just has to end with GN. Does that make sense? Now let's take a look at the data again. And how about if I want to start at the beginning? I want it to start with M or P, and I don't care what comes next. Very, very nice. And of course, we can do order by name ascending. Put it A to Z. Very good. Now, for every like that we use, we can come over there and say not like. So now this is saying, hey, I don't want it to start with P. I'm going to get everything else. Isn't that nice? And you see how, let's put the order by so we can do some more canceling. Notice that we have two that start with S. Well, let's get them out of there. Not like S. The S's are gone. So not only can we use like, you have to remember about these. Remember, if I have one at the start, that's telling me, hey, I don't know what the first characters are, but there's an S in there. And it doesn't have to be the last character. Now, it can't be the last character. Who cares? But, you know, I don't care what the last character is. So I'm searching for something that has S in there. And S is in there somewhere in every one of these words. Here, I'd be saying that it ends with S. Sweet. Now, sometimes we want to find just one record. So maybe we want to find it by group name, where it's this. Then notice there are 5 names associated with that. But if I just want to get this one department 9 here, I could have said where d.department equals 9. And that will get me the one row. Another way to use the not is not equal. So here we're saying we're group name not equal this. When I said it was equal, notice that it just got me that 1. But when I say not equal, it excludes that. Right? Excellent. Now, we've learned this one earlier, but now we're starting to get to a point where we already have a lot of skills. So here you can see that I want to say where group name is in 2 items. Let's see this right here. I'm going to show all the data. You see where group name has manufacturing, so I want these 2, and quality assurance, these 2. So this will return 4 rows. Now, of course, every time I use the word in, I can say not in. So that means I want everything except these 2 items. Now you'll notice here that we have this modified date. That is a date time column. And of course, we can do queries just on that. Notice here that I'm saying, I just want the day of modified date. Let's actually just put this up here so you can see this. So I want the day of d.modified date. And just execute these first 2 lines. Notice that I can just get out the day. I can get out the month number. And of course, I can get out the year. So now what I'm saying is, hey, I want it where the modified date is 30. So if the day is 30, notice that it's actually all of these, but I can go get that value just on the day part of the date, which is very nice. Can you imagine I had a bunch of dates and I just wanted for the end of the month? That is awesome. And of course, I can do sorting on this. Notice, whatever I'm querying on the date modified, I don't have to use the order by on that clause. I can use it on any combination of these other fields. Now we're going to switch tables, and now we're going to be looking at the person table. Well, earlier we've learned that there's over 19,000 rows in this table. And now I'm looking at where the first name equals Alan. Now earlier we learned this command, top 100. Remember that? So I get the top 100 rows. Now what I want to do now is I want to get it where the first name is Alan. And notice that returned me 30 rows. You're not going to be able to see the bottom, but there's 30 rows there. Now, how could I know that there was 30 rows there? I could come up here and say select count star, or first name is Alan. We learned that in video number 1. Each command you can't forget. You're going to have to continually to practice and figure this out. So D dot star, P dot star, Alan. Now let's kick this up a notch. Notice here the middle name sometimes is null. Null is a special meaning in database talk. That means absence of value. So what we'd like to do is we want to go get everybody that is null, that is not null. So is not null. So for instance, this Alan here, his middle name is null. I don't want that one. I just want this J, A, no nulls. So let's see how that works out. And notice here we have returned 12 rows. And notice everybody has a middle name. Okay, so that is how we do SQL statements with the where clause. Now we have been through several different kinds, and there's a whole lot more that we can do with just the where clause in and. There's a lot of other little switches, like there's all the date functions you can learn, there's all the string functions you can learn. There's a bunch of things that we can learn here. And remember, we don't have to use P dot star anymore. We've been taught that when I first started. I could just say P dot first name, and see how that alias on line 5 allows me to just cherry pick the ones I want, like middle name and P dot last name. You see how I just cherry pick those columns off there? I mean, this is just so awesome to be able to use an alias, and it just gives me all the IntelliSense when you're doing SQL statements. So there you have it, team, the where clause. Let us look at a couple other things that we can do with the order clause. Let's open up a new workspace, right click on this, and say new query. Now we're going to start with just looking at data. And when we execute this, we're going to get back 16 rows. Now you are already starting to get familiar with human resources.department. And what we're going to do is we're just going to be looking at just one clause here. It's called order by. And when we say order by, what normally goes here is one of these names. So I can say order by name and then hit execute. And notice that these are sorted in alphabetical order A to Z. Now I can add more than one column. I can say I want you to do it by name and by group name. I can do that. And I can also change the direction on both of these. Like say I wanted this one to go descending, that's Z to A, and then this one ascending. I can do that as well. Now I can do it one other way, and I only recommend you do this one technique if and only if you're sitting at your desk and you're just trying to get done real fast. I would never show this to the boss and or put this in production code. You can actually say 2, 3. This is the second column and this is the third column. And of course I can switch that up. I can say 3, 2. And of course I can put your descending, ascending here. Descending, ascending. Now the problem with this, if you haven't figured out yet, is if With star, I don't know what column I'm getting back. What if someone went and modified my table structure and inserted some more columns? And if and only if I give you the names of this, let's use an alias here, D, and then D dot department, D dot name, D dot group, and D dot modify date. Here you can see that it's positions 1, 2, 3, 4. Unfortunately, we can go and just change this, and sometimes people don't read through all of our source code to go find, look at the order by statement. They might just come in there and insert another column here. You can do that. That's, perfectly fine. So then this would cause an error. And you certainly don't want this in production code where next thing you know, a report is not in sorted order. So that could be a problem. So this is the only new thing that we have taught, putting more than one field into the order by pattern. Let's take a closer look at group by and having. Let's look at group by and having. We'll start off with what we've been starting off all along is right click, new query. And let's show all the records in Human Resources department. You have to highlight the whole thing. And let's move this up there so we can see what's going on. We still have our 16 rows. And now we want to introduce a new concept called group by. And can you see how, let's do an order here. Order by D dot group name. Can you see here that this group name has 5 of them, 5 entries, and inventory management has 2, and manufacturing 2, and research development has 3 names, and sales and marketing has 2. Well, there's a SQL statement to go get this word and then tell me how many of these there are. And that's how we can use group by. Let's take a little look-see at that. So what we're going to say here is I'm going to get the name, and then I'm going to count the name column. Every time you see something blue like this, it's kind of a reserved word, so you can put a bracket around that will make that behave. So I'm going to get the group name, and then I'm going to get the count of the names. So, and then notice here I say group by this column. And then I have to order by the count, and I'm going to go descending. Let's take a little look-see at that. And notice that it told me that there were 5 of them. Well, when we did this first SQL statement, we saw that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We saw that 5 of them were in there. So this statement right here is legit. Now, you just need to study this and see how this works, and you will be using this all the time. This is very, very common inside of SQL Server. Now, a lot of times when we do SQL statements, it's like, how do we prove it is right? And the only way to prove it's right is to type in some more SQL statements. So the first one I'm going to do here is I'm going to see how I got quality assurance, told me that there were 2 of them. I said select d.star, show it all to me where the group name is quality assurance. Now notice here I just commented out these lines because I'm going to go test research and development for 3 and then the executive general for 5. So let's do the bottom one first, quality assurance. So quality assurance told us that there were 2, and now we're going to go execute that, and there are just 2. Isn't that sweet? Now if I want to go and look at the next test, I can uncomment that and comment this, and let's do that statement. So research and development, we have 3 of them. Well, what did this group by say? Research and development, 3. Oh, perfect. And then the final test, how about we just do the very first one, comment out the next line. So now it's saying, show me all of them. How many will this have? Well, that will have 5. Now, when I did this statement, what did it tell me for the executive general? Executive general 5. So this statement does work. And I've showed you what it takes to prove that your statement is correct. Sooner or later, you're just going to trust yourself and you won't have to do this proof anymore. Now, the table called Human Resources Departments, that was a very easy table. There was only 16 rows in there. Let's go to something bigger. Let's go look at the person table. There's 19,000 rows in there. Now look at this query. I want to get there's a column called email promotion, and let's just go and select top 100 star from person.person. Let's go get the first 100 rows. And notice that there's a column in there called email promotion. And notice it's got values 0, 1, 2. Okay, that's all I can see right now. But I want to get this email promotion and then the number of people that are assigned to this email promotion. But look what I'm doing. I want to do it between 2008 and 2010. And then I'm going to group by that email promotion. Let's see that work. Wow, just in these 2008, 9, and 10, 3 years, there's 277 people that were assigned to 0, 123 for 1, and 109 for 2. Now, of course, we could have commented this out and just did the group by, and this would have done the entire table, 19,000 rows. And it looks like email promotion 0 is most popular. Now, it is possible that we need to go and test our statement here as well. And how would you do that? Well, we just want to go get some counts, right? And when we did this statement right here, notice that in 2008, in these 3 years, we have 277 different people that were assigned that. So we're going to do one more modified, and we're going to go looking at 3 deep now. I'm going to be looking at the promotion, the 0, and then the modified date, and then the count. Let's see what happens. Notice that in 0 promotion in the year 2008, there was 86 people. And then in 2009, for that same, there was 144. And then in 2010, there was 47. Isn't this totally awesome that you can do all this grouping? And notice here, I just said group by that promotion and the year. Now, how did I figure out I wanted to do a group by on this data? Well, I didn't. I just looked at the data and I said, let's see how many people were assigned during this email promotion. And then I started looking at year. It's just with data, it's it's unlimited amount of fun. Okay, that's great. Now, for us to go and figure out, did we do this correctly? What we can do is we can drop in one little test SQL statement and say, hey, let's go take a look at that. So here, I want to go test out this first year, email promotion 0. And what should this be? This should be 86. Let's go execute that. And let's bring this up. So it's 86. And if we were to do 2009 saying it should be 144. And that came up to 144. So this is a good SQL statement. Like I said, sooner or later, you're going to have some trust in that, and it'll all work out, okay? Let's look at our last example. Our last example is we're going to go look at names. Remember, inside of this database, there's 19,000 people. So here I'm saying, select the first name in the count where the person begins with ALI and then a %. I don't care what their name is. It has to start with ALI. And then I'm going to group by this first name. Let's see what happens. Notice that returned me 4 rows. We have this Alice, there's 5 of them. Alicia, 18. Perfect. Now how can we do test on that to see if that even exists? Well, you see how we have Alicia for 18? Let's go see, how can we write a test to see if our SQL statement is correct? Well, we would say select count from persons where first name is Alicia. Let's see if that works out. And there you go, 18. Now, there's one other thing that's part of this group by, it's having. And a lot of times, I might want this number over here to be at a certain range or just a number. For instance, on this one right here, I can say having count less than 10. So this will only return Alice. Do you see that? Now, if I wanted it greater than 25, or how about we do 15, greater than 15, it will return me these 3 bottom rows. So the having is kind of like another thing. After I get all the data, this having goes through it one more time and says, hey, does that count, this column here, is it greater than 15? And we can see that. We can also go in for the kill and we can say, does it equal 48?